in terms of submitting the report? So
Do we need to just share it with you and that's it? Or do we need to email you when we're done?
no, you need to submit it into Blackboard. Let me share the screen. Final item there is the Dropbox for the final version of the informative report. And that's where you submit it. You click on here. And you get all the information here. And you can either attach a Word document. I do not recommend using attach browse cloud storage because that mostly never works. So you browse your computer, attach a Word document, or you can click on text submission and share the file. So here's, I'm going to share something. You need to change it into edit or comment. So change it into a commenter so that I can actually write on it. Or you can change it into an editor. My Zoom things are taking up my space. Or you can change it into editor. And you click done. And you go back to your Blackboard Dropbox. And so remember, I had gone to where it said text submission. I clicked on write submission. Now I have a text box. Now I paste that. Oh, it's the wrong thing, but it doesn't matter. This is the somehow it didn't copy, but so this is the link to the Zoom thing, but the same thing applies. You paste it there, then you click on insert edit link. You put it again into that same box, insert, and that makes it hot. And then you click submit. So in the text box is just the shared link to the document. And see how it says submission text? So that's how you're reminded. And if you can't remember how to make it a hot link, fine. I can always copy it and then paste it into the URL and look at it that way. And if for some reason I can't see it, I'll let you know. Okay, questions?
Dr. Matheson, I was just wondering, this is more related to myself, but I was wondering if you got the rough draft and revision plan I sent you, because I sent it to you, but I didn't hear back. So I'm wondering if I need to resend it.
Well, I didn't set it up so that I was going to be giving feedback.
Oh yeah, but I saw that it was
yes. So I received everybody's. I should probably yeah. I will go in and just tell everybody, yes, I received it. Thank you. So you know.
Okay, so you don't want me to resend it to you?
If you sent it, I got it.
Okay.
I just didn't do anything about it so that you knew for sure.
Okay. Just
I'll go through and make sure, and if I didn't receive it from somebody, I'll say it. When I set up those, the small groups, through Zoom, as an option, I did do it at that point, whether I'd received it or not. So,
Okay, yeah, well, because I had just missed that class that it was due or whatever,
yeah.
so I had just shared it with my group mates later on and shared it with you
Okay.
later on.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So while we're here, you should be able to see the contents in this learning module in Blackboard. So there's the assignment details and the research resources, basically the two handouts that I provided. And then I put all the recordings in under it. So you can go and look at all the, any class you missed, you can go get it there. They're also, of course, in the announcements, but that's just, that's harder to find because it's over time. And I always assume that people actually look at the recordings. So that means if you're absent, and so that means I can rely that you actually heard whatever everybody else heard. Is it possible for people to bring up their papers right now?
Yes.
Are you all sort of set up that way? Because I would like to talk a little bit about proofreading before you finally submit. One of the benefits of doing it as a Blackboard submission, as a Google Doc submission, is you can keep fixing it and the changes show up in the version that I see. So, you can turn it in on time, but then keep working with it. And so that's one of the benefits of working on a Google Doc rather than a final, than a Word doc. Of course, that's one of the drawbacks, the fact that you can always keep fussing with it and a project's never over, which is also a problem. So I wanted to kind of just talk you through what you should do with sort of proofreading, overlooking something before, or looking over something before you submit it. And I'm going to just kind of talk you through it, and I'm hoping that you'll kind of just jot down a note and actually do this process, partly while I'm going on, and then because I'm not going to go as slow as you would have to, but and then partly later. So the key to proofreading is to slow down. So the problem that so many people do when they are finalizing a document is they just start over and read at the beginning and just read through and read it through and read through. Well, just reading through the document yet another time is not usually going to help you see the things that you need to see that you might need to change, because you wrote the document and you practically write it in your head when you're reading it because you've written it so many times. And so therefore, you do not, I think I'm going to stop sharing here. So therefore, you I need to turn the backlight off. Oh well. So if you just read it over from beginning to end, you're not going to really notice things. And the whole key behind proofreading is that you have to notice it. And you have to look at it in a different way in order to notice it, because it's become too automatic. So I'm going to suggest some various steps to slow down and not to read in the ordinary way. In a sense, I'm saying disrupt your reading so that you'll notice things. The first thing I would do is I would pick it up, or if it's on the screen, look at it, and look at it from a distance where you cannot even read the text. Does it look like it's supposed to look? Is it just all a big blob of words? Are there sections in it? Can you tell the sections from it? If the format is supposed to be a report or a memo or a letter, from far away, does it look like a report, a memo, or a letter? In other words, is the shape the way it should be? The report should not look like an academic paper. An academic paper looks like all big blocks of text with nothing in between. A report should have sections, should have headings. Can you see that there are headings? So that's the first thing I would do to proofread. Secondly, getting a little closer to it, the report should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion somehow. Now, I'm not saying the body should just be a short little thing. I'm just saying that there should be a beginning, a middle, and end. And so go back over it and see, do you have an introduction that somehow prepares the reader for everything else that's going to come? And then go and look at the conclusion and see if you have some kind of conclusion that wraps it up in some way. So that's step 2. Step 3 is getting much closer and gets at this issue that I was talking about, incorporation of sources. Every time you use a source, ask yourself, what is the point I'm trying to make? What is the point I'm trying to make? And could I take the source out and just make it in my own language? And then put the source back. And if you are relying too much on the language, whether it's a quote or a paraphrase of your source, consider, doing some revising to account for that. In theory, you could take all your sources out and it would still be a comprehensible document. Just wouldn't have the quotes. So that's the third thing to look at. The fourth thing is the APA. So again, when you are reading from beginning to end, you're not going to pay attention to APA at that point, when you're just double checking for proofreading. You have to force yourself to look at each APA entry and pay attention. Go back, check whether it's right. There are 2 parts with an APA documentation. There is the in-text citation, the parentheses that goes in the text, and then there's the references at the end. Now, remember, you don't have to put an interview in the end, in the list of references when you're using APA. They treat it as non-referenceable material because nobody else can go get that interview. And so when you're talking about the stuff that you learn from the interview, it's just make sure that in the text it makes sense and that it's clear that you're reporting what your interviewee said rather than somebody else. But you don't have to worry about APA. Any other sources, you do have to worry about APA. So, you know, is the parentheses correct and is the reference correct? And, you know, it's tedious double checking. That's why we tend to skip it, but it's worth it to make it good at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth thing is surface issues. Grammar, spelling. Both Word and Google Docs have default spell check and grammar checks. They catch some things, they don't catch other things. But don't turn them off. I mean, you might want to turn them off while you're drafting, but at the end, turn them back on. And if there's one of those little squiggle lines, investigate it. It may be wrong, but at least investigate it and see, you know, that you correct it. I don't know if when I see the squiggly line on the version that I'm looking at, if those are the same squiggly lines you would see. I don't know if it's the first time, because I've seen, I don't really know how it works, but I often read papers that have the squiggly lines under them, you know, a misspelling or, you know, whatever. And I know there are some law school professors, it's only law school people that do things like this, that require students to sign like a little affidavit that says, I have run this through spell check and I commit to having, you know, corrected all the misspellings in spell check. And they require them to sign it. I would, that seems like going over it, but do it, take advantage of those things. The other thing about reviewing for grammar and editing type things is you need to know the kinds of things you make mistakes on. So I'll tell you, I cannot spell things like acceptance or compelling, or there are a whole bunch of words I cannot spell. So every time if my spell check didn't catch it, and sometimes it doesn't, I guess the spell check in Blackboard doesn't catch a lot of things. I'll just, you know, check on the spelling and Google it and make sure I got the spelling right. So I know which words I tend to misspell. I know that I'm not sure about apostrophe with it's, that IT apostrophe S and the it's without the apostrophe. You need, as a student, to become familiar with the things that you tend to get wrong. You know, if your teachers are always saying your verb forms aren't right, double check the verb forms. Find an expert at verb forms to go over your paper with you to make sure you've got it right. If your teacher keeps telling you have comma splices, check it over for comma splices. Or if they keep telling you you have run-ons, or that there are sentences that get confusing. Double check all the things that you tend to have problems with. So that's the sixth thing. No, that's the fifth thing. Should have written this. And here's the sixth thing, what I call picky details on my syllabus. All right, double check that you've named the file the way I want you to name it, which is your last name first. And I think everybody's usually gotten that by this point. And also I want you to name the version number. So, and this is something that, you know, because of Google, if you're working in Google Docs, you know, you name it something at the beginning, you can rename it. So if it's the one that you're submitting to me, if it's at the point that you're submitting, in other classes, I call it best for now. And, you know, what you're saying is it's the best for now version. and it's ready to be graded. Make sure that's in that title that across the top of the paper. If there's some kind of a date involved, if you've put a date on as to when it is, make sure you change the date to today, whenever you've done it. Okay? So that's what I have to say about proofreading. Any other questions? I think what I will do is send you all a document with a list of those things, just as a reminder. All right. So at this point, I want to shift and talk about, shift to our new topic, our new paper. The information is in in week 10. It's also in Blackboard. I have fleshed out all the deadlines and put it into the assignment itself. And so we have all the details. Listed right here at the beginning. And then later on, I talk a little bit more about these associated assignments. And they are attached to something that explains each one in more detail. I want to show you the schedule version of this calendar, just so. All right, so here we are on October 29th. What I've done is I've outlined out 3 tasks that are sort of preliminary tasks for this project. The first task is going to be a brainstorming discussion that we're going to do actually in Blackboard discussion. And my plan is to start that at the end of class today. And it'll have the instructions in there. The second task, that's a preliminary task, is to come up with a plan. And, you know, I will link that into the calendar in a minute. And that is due next Thursday, a week from today. And then the third preliminary activity is this annotated bibliography. I started talking a little bit about it. And it is task 3. And it is due in it's 2.5 weeks. So we're going to spend some time looking at academic research and figuring out how to summarize it and incorporate it and document it over these, and finding it as well, because that's not always easy. Then we have our fall break, which is really Thanksgiving break. And after that, we actually are not going to have the whole class meet as a whole again. You are going to turn in a draft at that point, and you are going to have individual conferences with me when you'll turn in the draft. We'll talk about it. And that's actually the last week of the semester. And then the final version for grading will be due December 10th, which is the day that our exam is scheduled. We won't have an exam. Instead of that, you'll turn these things in, and there's also going to be a final reflection assignment that you'll turn in at that time. So you can see the overall sort of plan. So sometimes when you look at an assignment, it seems like, oh God, how am I going to ever do it? And we've got 6 weeks to work on this assignment, basically. Oh, 5 weeks to work on this assignment. So this is plenty of time. And as a teacher, this is called, we talk about scaffolding writing assignments. So I've created a scaffold. These tasks are all this part of the scaffold. We're going to just do small parts as we go. So the brainstorming is to try to come back up with topics. Then the plan is basically picking a topic. And so I'm showing you this, even though it's not due for a whole week, so that you can start thinking about what you're trying to do. Basically, this whole assignment is a problem solution type assignment to try to, think of a problem, not a real big problem necessarily. You're not going to solve coronavirus, but think of a problem within some of the communities that you're involved with as a student or an employee or a community member, and come up with a solution that you'd like to propose or recommend. So the plan will say what problem, what solution, the audience you will write for, the genre you will use, report, memo, or letter. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The area for academic research that you expect to explore for your annotated bibliography, and note there is a little asterisk there, and any permissions you'll need to conduct the research or work on this problem. This especially applies if you're proposing a workplace project. So for example, if you feel like there is some kind of problem with scheduling at your workplace and you want to make a proposal to your employer about that, and as part of doing that, you're going to maybe talk to other people in the department about the scheduling. So it would be a good idea to talk to your employer, let them know that that's what you're doing, and make sure that they're comfortable with you doing this project for a class. Now, both of these, the asterisk ones, the solution you expect to propose, and the area for academic research, I pointed out their provisional starting points you can expect will evolve as you work. So, you don't know for sure what you'll find out when you do research. That's the whole point, partly. But at least if you have some kind of target that you're looking for. And then on this, I explain more about academic research, which I'm not going to go over right now. We'll talk about a little bit more as we go on, but you should definitely read that along with everything else. And then in the in the assignment sheet again, there's a document, the annotated bibliography, which is due November 17th. And it explains what an annotated bibliography is and what's required. And there's a handout. Links within links. One of the points added in here is that, or it was included on Tuesday, but is that I'll be asking you to attach a cover memo to me covering all versions of the report. And then I have picky details and relationship to course outcomes. Questions about the assignment? Any questions? Okay. So on the website, it explains that I'd like you to read this textbook, and I will have readings throughout. I showed you a little bit about this. And the first sections that I would like you to read, note how I did, I just clicked on the link, I clicked on read this book. I showed you last class that you actually can download it if you want to, but you can also just read it online. And I want you to look at chapter 7.2 and 7.5, I think it is. Yes. And you might want to, by the way, look at other things in this textbook. There's some helpful things. So I just want to look kind of briefly at something that it talks about in this 7.2 section. So as I said, this is kind of a problem solution paper ultimately. And depending on the topic you come up with, you may focus more on a problem than a solution, or you may focus more on a solution than a problem, or you may end up, kind of doing both. It just kind of depends on where you are in the situation. And the closest kind of type of report that you're doing are what are called proposals or recommendation reports. And that's what 7.2 and 7.5 talk about. But you will see when you read this more detailed that there isn't, these different types of proposals are not written in stone. They're more or less sort of general guidelines of what is the overall purpose. And so you're going to have to kind of think about what is your overall purpose given your topic. And so they're always using these conditional language. Proposals are persuasive documents intended to initiate a project and get the reader to authorize a course of action proposed in the document. And these might include proposals to perform a task, such as a feasibility study or a research project, or provide a product or provide a service. And in general, yours are probably more likely to be performing a task. Since you're not in the business of doing whatever you're going to be writing about. Then they point out that they can have various purposes and thus take many forms. It may include sections such as the following. So again, these are not required elements of any of these reports, but you may find that some of these categories might be helpful. Now, a lot of them are probably more than you need for this particular thing. I mean, I'm asking for a 3-5 page report. But still, in a smaller way, they still may be really important. This is what I kind of want to talk about right now. As you're thinking about your projects, there are basically 4 kinds, and actually these are not exclusive types. Actually, solicited, unsolicited, it can be solicited or unsolicited, and internal or external. And so that what that leads is basically to a grid. And I started talking about this a little earlier. So in almost every case, you guys are writing unsolicited proposals or recommendation reports. Unless something is going on in your particular business and, you know, where you work or whatever, where somebody has asked you to do something, you are not responding to something, some solicitation to solve a problem. So you just need to be aware of that. So what does that mean for your project? And then internal and external will differ depending on your project. And I've mentioned before that an internal proposal is one within the institution that you're talking about. So let's say you're writing to your church and you're a church member. So that would be an internal proposal. Or you're writing to your department at ULR. You think there's something that should be changed within the department. You may write it as a internal document. On the other hand, let's say you think the city needs to do something differently with its park. In that case, although you are a member of the, you're in the city, you're not actually an employee within the city organization. And so it would be an external document. That affects your decision of formatting and whether you use what kind of format that you use. So as it says up here, internal proposals are written by and for someone within the same organization. They're generally shorter and usually address some way to improve a work-related situation. As internal documents, they are often sent as memos or introduced with a memo if the proposal is lengthy. So you can write it as a report with a memo on top of it, kind of introducing it, or you can write the whole thing as a memo. So my sample recommendation report is about the Trojan Transit. I'm writing it to UALR administration. So therefore it is an internal document. It's a relatively short thing, so I decided to just use memo format and then and direct it to the appropriate administration. So this part of this thinking about what kind of format you use, this is part of the plan questions, has to do with solicited and unsolicited, internal and external. Questions?
And so this is due next Tuesday or Thursday?
The plan is due Thursday. Brainstorming is due Tuesday.
Thursday. Okay.
I think I need to change the way this automatically goes there. Okay, so when you look at the Unit 4 assignment module in Blackboard, the first thing in it is this Unit 4 assignment. That's that whole document. I'm going to add something so you don't go straight to it, which is irritating. The next thing I put in there was Tuesday's class recording, because that's pretty much the class was all entirely about the new assignment. And then we have test 1, test 2, test 3. Test 2 and test 3 are that assignment sheet. And I'm going to have to add a Dropbox for the annotated bibliography. But test 2, you click there, and that actually gets you to the discussion area. So this is the task that's due next class, by next class. And basically, I've set up a discussion to try to just, give you some ways of brainstorming possible topics. And I decided to do it as a discussion where you could see everybody else's, so that maybe by seeing what everybody else has done, you can come up with ideas for yourself. That might help you. Okay. And so here's the assignment. So that's what's due for Tuesday. And then Thursday is the actual plan where you come up with it. So we're taking a whole week for you to come up with your topic. So what this asks you to do is come up with, identify 3 things that bug you at work, school, or your community. Actually, I just realized that the wording is not quite precise. It should be 3 things each that bug you at work, school, and your community. Then hypothesize how you might solve them. So I've created 3 threads for work, school, and community. Post under the appropriate thread. And then for part 2, read each other's ideas and respond to at least 3 of them by suggesting more solutions on how you might research those topics. So the reason I'm asking you to do part 2 is so that you will be sure to read what everybody else has done and come up with some other ideas. and also so that you'll perhaps interact with each other about those ideas. If you click on this, you will see there are 3 threads. And all they say is post and discuss ideas about community-based UI Little Rock and workplace. So what I would really like to do right now is to work within Zoom. Work within Blackboard for everybody to log into their Blackboard shell and participate in this discussion and just get it started. Is that something that's feasible with everybody's technology? Hello?
Yes.
Whitney asked, will the plan have to be written in a certain format? No. Just answer those questions. But I guess if it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to think of it as a memo to me. But I'll be mostly looking at the content of the plan. Good question, though. So I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, no, I'm going to keep sharing. But I am going to exit the preview and go in and look as a. No, actually, I don't even need to do that. I think I can stay in this role. So what I'd like everybody to do is to log into Blackboard and post in the discussions. I think I will exit. That way I can see if people have posted better. I'm hoping to see some posts. How about if I say that before class ends, everybody needs to post at least once? Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody's going to have to be the first one.
Does it have to be 3 things?
No, just post one to start with.
Hey, this is a list that I posted. Did it not show up yet?
Well, one of them did just, yes, it did show up. Just did.
Okay.
Whitney, are you talking about where you work or at,
Yes,
UL?
ma'am.
Okay. It's an issue at UL Little Rock as well. All right, now you're going, guys. I like that idea, Ariana, of tire changing.
We had a discussion at work because one of our girls needed to jump her car and she didn't even know how to jump her car.
Yeah.
And so, because I told her I had some jumpers in the car and I can just pull my car close and she can do it while I'm still working. And she was like, well, I don't even know how. And so another girl was like, I'll try to help you, even though I don't know how either. And I was like, do you guys even know how to change a tire? And they didn't know that either. And I was like, what the heck?
I remember there was a point when my husband actually decided that he had neglected to teach his kids, his sons, some basics of how to work on the car, to do with the car. I'm hoping that if they were daughters, he would have realized that as well. But so he, unfortunately, on jumping the car, they had lots of experience doing that. Okay, I will be signing off now. I'm concerned about some of the people not actually responding to this. I'm not really sure that you're still here. So if you want to convince me that you're still here, I would definitely go in right now and post in the Blackboard. But I'm going to end the class for now. This discussion part is due on Tuesday. And of course, the other paper is due tonight. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be seeing you soon.